I went through a very scientific-based course. That's where I studied, university. Everything is science-based. We are taught to be skeptical. We are taught to question absolutely everything that is thrown our way. So every week I'm thrown another fad diet. Another person tells me about something else, and I'm skeptical of it always. I'm never quick to take up anything. If I am going to investigate something further, it takes me a long time to get my head around it. I need lots and lots of research to back it before I will start recommending it and before I will start doing something myself. That's how we're taught to be. So for a while, about 2-3 years ago, I started hearing whispers about this low-carb, high-fat eating, or way of life, lifestyle, as people like to refer to it. And I heard from one person, and I heard from another person, and I was just getting more and more people were coming and asking me about it, speaking to me about it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to look into this a little bit further so I can, what I went out looking for was the research to disprove this. Because I had been taught the pyramid, I had been taught high carb, low fat was the best way to be healthy, the best way to lose weight, the best way to live your life. That's how I had been taught, and so that's what I believed. I had seen the research for that, and that's the way I had been practicing. So out I went and started scouring journals, books, to find research that pointed towards why low carb, high fat was a bad idea. That's where I went out there with the mindset of trying to find. And when I did that, I just kept finding research that was supporting it. Very much to my surprise. And I thought, no, this can't be right. And then research started coming out of really reputable labs, good university, backed by health government funding, not by industry funding, which I'll go into a little bit more details about that later. And then I started looking back on research from years ago. Research from the early 1900s, where modern medicine was born, from guys like William Osler, who is known as the founder of modern medicine. And then post-World War II in the 50s. And research was there. Research about this stuff was present then. We were just never exposed to it in our degree. So this is about 2.5 years ago when I initially started came across all of this stuff. And so I decided to start, I had enough at my fingertips to convince me that low carbohydrate was the way to go. And so Joey and I changed our diet dramatically, and I started prescribing low carbohydrate to my patients and to clients, and I started speaking to people about it. But the high fat thing, I couldn't get my head around it. I could not get my head around how you could eat huge amounts of fat. These studies, some of these studies were prescribing a diet of 80-85% fat. I couldn't get my head around it, and so I sort of just brushed it aside for 2.5 years, 2 years. And we did the low carb thing. And anybody who's done the low carb thing might know that if you just do the low carb thing and you don't do the high fat thing with it, it's really hard. It's too hard. You get hungry, you go up and down. Hunger is probably the hardest part about it. Initially there's low energy levels, but you get over that, and then it's just that hunger. And so what Joey and I found for ourselves is that we would have some really good times, we'd lose weight, we'd feel great, we'd exercise well, and then we'd sort of crumble, and then we'd pick ourselves up, and we'd go again. And we were just sort of on this yo-yo, which I'm not a fan of. I don't want to be in a yo-yo. I need something that's working, that's consistent all the time. And then in March this year, I saw a study that came out from Harvard University. Now, when a study from Harvard University comes out, you don't ignore it. Harvard University doesn't make recommendations at the blink of an eye. This study that was released was a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis means that they take thousands of other studies, take the results from all of them, put them all together, and come up with the big result, the recommendation. And what did Harvard University's study say? Here it is up here. It says, dietary fat and heart disease study is seriously misleading. I'll read some other bits for those of you who can't see that there. There is no evidence supporting the long-standing recommendation to limit saturated fat consumption. This is Harvard University. No link found between saturated fat and heart disease. And that picked my ears up. And I thought, maybe there's something to this high-fat thing. And then, very soon afterwards, I got wind of this. Sweden becomes first Western nation to reject the low-fat diet dogma in favour of low-carbohydrate, high-fat nutrition. And the spokesman for the task force that put these recommendations together said this. You don't get fat from fatty foods, just like you don't turn green from green veggies. He also said things like this. Calories are calories. Oh, he didn't say this. He made these statements, and then we'll make a statement at the end of all of this. Calories are calories. This is the sort of thing we hear, yeah? No matter where they come from. We've all heard that. It's all about the balance between calories in and calories out. You want to lose weight? Move more, eat less. Yeah? People are fat because they don't move enough. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Of course, these are not true. This is what he said. I'd like to read something here. Of course, these are not true. This kind of nonsense has people with weight problems feeling bad about themselves, as if it were all about their inferior character. For many people, a greater intake of fat means that you'll feel satisfied, stay so longer, and have less of a need to eat every 5 minutes. On the other hand, you won't feel satisfied after drinking a Coke or eating an almost fat-free, low-fat fruit yogurt loaded with sugar. Sure, exercise is great in many ways, but what really affects weight is diet. When Sweden put these dietary guidelines together, they reviewed 16,000 studies in order to put them together. And within their recommendations, the dietary guidelines is usually just made up of a few statements, and for the general public, just usually read those initial statements, and then underneath there's a whole lot of other information, and some of the other information says stuff like butter, olive oil, heavy cream and bacon are not harmful foods. Quite the opposite. Fat is the best thing for those who want to lose weight. And there are no connections between a high fat intake and cardiovascular disease. Interesting, isn't it? I found this stuff really interesting. So interesting to the point that this was March, in the last few months, I've been reading that many books that I've been awake for too many hours. I get excited and I start reading about 3 or 4 books at once, and I'm turning pages and I'm waking Joey up and I'm telling him, look at this. And he's like, what? And I have a whole conversation with him that he doesn't remember the next day. I've also gone and watched a few documentaries. There's some great documentaries that have now been released that you can go out and have a look at, and I'll give you some details about these if you're interested. I've listened to endless podcasts, interviews with doctors from around the world. I've then found doctors that are supporting this way of eating in Melbourne, and I've gone out to visit them and had discussions with them to find out what they're doing with their patients and how it's working. And the bottom line is that it's working, and it's really exciting. And people are getting incredible results, not only from a weight loss point of view. Many people are attracted to this way of eating initially because of the great amount of weight loss that occurs with it. But the health benefits have been astounding. And for many doctors out there, that is what has interested them in this way of eating so much.
If you would like more information about easy low carb living, please go to acaciahealth.com.au/nutrition.